Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 3 of The Beer Enthusiasts, and this week we have a really exciting one. We have one that a new beer from a brewery that doesn't make a lot of new beers.
Yeah, we didn't even verify, I don't think. Maybe you did, but when the last time they made a new beer was. It seems like the same ones for as long as I can remember, so this is super fun.
Yeah, this is great. This is Schlenkerla Weichsel. So this is their Rotbier. Rotbier is red beer or red lager. They give a nice little explanation of the history on their website. So they say that Rotbier, i.e. Red lager, used to be very common in Franconia, and the city of Nuremberg in particular was known for its Rotbier. And since its production was extremely laborious, it was replaced in the 19th century by brown beer or brown lager, which was produced using more modern and some more simple brewing methods. And then this style was revived in 1997, thankfully, because I know this is not the first time I've had this one. Usually, we're not drinking these in preparation or anything, but Chris found so many of them that it was hard to not have some before because we knew we wanted to feature this one.
Well, and what's funny is it's not like your average consumer is beating down the liquor store doors for smoked beer. I think, and so I had to special order this. I had to make sure to get it in. So we are your local smoke beer nerds, and so we got a full case because we got no problem going through a case of smoke beer between the two of us. So
absolutely. All right. Not a ton in terms of the recipe from Schlenkerla. Obviously, the big thing that they're always letting people know is what kind of smoked malt that they're using, because almost all of their beer has some smoke component. Most of it's smoked malt, and so this one in particular is it's new because it's a new kind of smoked malt that they're using. They're using cherry wood smoked malt, and then besides that, it's in Germany, so it's all going to be a lot of Reinheitsgebot compliant things. They're using lager yeast, likely traditional German hops, and then this one's kind of more in a really sessionable ABV range. It's 4.6. I've seen a couple of places. Enegren Brewing out here was doing did a root beer as well, and they were kind of calling it. People were asking what it was, and they were saying, think of like a even more sessionable Dunkel. And I was like, Dunkels are already really sessionable to begin with.
Well, and from what I know about Rotbier, and obviously we can't recreate exactly some of the older ones because we just don't have the ingredients anymore, and it also, wasn't traditionally smoked, I don't think. So this is their take on it, but it was always a little bit more sessionable, lower alcohol, sweet finishing red lager. And so I'm sure there are different interpretations and spins on it, including this version, which prominently features smoked malts. But you mentioned that it's a new smoked malt for Schlenkerla, which is fun because they basically have just used two previously, right? At least that I know of. Maybe they have more at the brewery.
Yeah.
But most of their lineup is Beechwood smoked malt, and then their Doppelbock Eiche is oak, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
So
that's what I remember as well.
A third type of wood smoke to the mix, and they only use it for this beer, like they only use oak for the Doppelbock. So it's kind of fun to have its own beer and its own interpretation, which is great.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we got for recipes. So it's always good when we get to quickly move on to sensory.
Yeah, so. I like how without conferring about it, we both poured the entire glass. We usually have tasting glassware, and something that you can kind of swirl. But this one, I have a 500-liter Ondex lager glass, and we have 500-milliliter bottles. And so, what are we doing? But if not pouring the whole thing in there to get the full route beer experience?
Yeah, this is a half-liter Willy Becker from Einger, and it's also great because this is the half-liter line, so there's plenty of space for nice cap of foam. Which on this one is a little bit kind of in the off-white realm, starting to approach kind of that light tan. Again, it's ridiculously clear. You could probably read the label on the bottle right through it, and it's kind of got that beautiful kind of like darker copper color, kind of a ruby hue to it, kind of a little bit more of like a bronzed orange at the edges, maybe. Just a beautiful color on this one.
Yeah, it really is suggestive of red, red lager. It's not like a
Yeah,
dull brown or something like that. It's got that, kind of vibrant orange red contour to it, which is really fun.
yeah,
And the aroma, I mean, just diving right in is, um, on the scale of their smoked beers, I would put this one a little bit lower.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
Märzen, the Doppelbock, and the Bach all are quite smoky. I would not call those like beginners smoke beers if you're trying to kind of get into the
Hmm.
flavor profile. This one, first impression, you might be able to get away with kind of like a beginner's amount of smoke because it is there.
Hmm.
You don't have to go searching for it, but it's maybe what, a 3 on the Rauch beer scale, a 4.
Yeah, yeah. I would say 3.5 to 4. Yeah.
The Rauch beer scale I just made up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you get a little bit of that smoke, and then one of the fun things with smoked beers when you start to get acclimated to the smoke a little bit, then you start to get some of those background notes, all of the malt notes, especially that you're going to get. There's not going to be a ton of hops in a style like this, but for me, there's a little hints of cherry. There's little hints of kind of you could imagine maybe like a cherry stem, because you're kind of imagining this cherry wood, but also like some graham cracker, a little bit of toasted honeycomb, toasted bread crust. So super
I like
malt
the
forward beer, but just enough uh, smoke to remind you where this is from.
Yeah, and they say, and many smoke beer fans say, particularly if you're in Bamberg, that you got to hang out and you got to have like two or three. And the point is,
Absolutely, yeah,
by the time the second one, the third one rolls around, the smoke is not the star of the show anymore. You've acclimated to it. You're getting all the secondary and tertiary notes that Scott's describing, but also, the other thing that springs forth is conversation and conviviality. It's just like, smoke stokes the party, but it's like gathering around a campfire telling stories.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. The on the palate, you're just getting this is a lot of there's a lot of echoing of the aroma. Obviously, the balance is malt forward. It's towards that malt sweetness, and then the finish not quite dry. Maybe like a medium dryness. It's not overly. It's interesting. You're getting sweet kind of impressions, but this is not a high finishing gravity.
Well, and yeah, not quite dry is exactly how I would describe it. It is sometimes when you get the smokiness compounded with a really truly dry finish on a beer, that can really kind of amp up all of those characters together in,
Right.
a pleasant or unpleasant way. It's totally up to the consumer. This one, if you try to ignore the smoke and you're just thinking about how the beer finishes on your palate, I would say it's lightly sweet,
Yeah.
lightly sweet finishing,
Hmm.
off sweet. Um, could be a way to describe it, and that's really pleasant. It doesn't have that kind of tongue scraping dryness, which has a time and a place. But this is I mean, sweet and smoke is a classic. So I think that's gonna pay dividends in our food pairings as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much what Schlenkerla kind of hangs their hat on. Just that kind of combination of the sort of sweetness of malt, and then really a phenolic. Smoke is really a phenolic character, and does kind of lend this kind of impression of bitterness and brightness, and so they're almost this just perfect match made in heaven. Speaking of food, where did you land on for some food pairings?
I've had two and a half savory ideas I wanted to share with you because
Mm,
the half is just, we, if you followed us on our Instagram version of this show, we once in a while dive back into mixed nuts territory, which is a long running joke from our sister owned study groups. And, smoked mixed nuts are awesome by themselves. You could pair that with this, but I also think you could just get some nice spiced ones or like tamari or soy almonds or whatever. and let the light smoke character from this just fill in, and you just that little bit of sweet and smoky, and then the salty and nutty. That just I could probably make myself sick on that. I think that
Yeah.
would be really good.
I
And so that's not a meal. It's just a snack.
Yeah. Oh, I swear to you, I literally just thought this is going to go really well with Mix the Nuts, but let's just not even put that. We'll just let. I didn't even talk to Chris about this. We don't talk about our food pairings, but literally just in my mind, I was like, we'll let Chris handle that because he'll definitely bring it up because that's just how it is in our groups. But then when I thought about that, then I thought, okay, well then how do we do this? But with keeping the mixed nuts thing in mind, then how do we move that towards cheese? Working with kind of these like semi-firm, not quite soft, not quite firm, kind of pliable alpine cheeses. This is would be very interesting to kind of see how far you could push the intensity. For a cheese like that, do you just kind of go with kind of that slightly lower intensity, just general nuttiness of an Emmentaler? Or I was reading about an Alpine cheese today, studying cheese, and it's called Andir Schmogler, and it's just got it's just bursting with just like buttered toasted almond character, and I thought that sounded like a really really good matchup for this beer for obvious reasons.
That would be super great. And he segues into one of my like actual dishes I was thinking of, which was, a lot of times it's around the holidays, but it can be just sort of big family get-togethers, like a veggie bake, where you saute off some vegetables, but then you get like a kind of a creamy white sauce going, almost like a flour roux kind of situation, and then you top it with breadcrumbs and or cheese and bake that off in the oven. And I think the cheese mix, if you did like a cheddar Gruyere kind of combo, or even cheddar with a light bit of Gouda on top of that white sauce with broccoli, cauliflower, peas, maybe some sweet corn, that kind of just like that sulfury, stinky vegetable quality kind of metered down by the sweet finishing component of this. And then what's better than like reminiscent of grilled vegetables, which is like the best way to eat them. So the smoke really plays in nicely there. And then hopefully also, you're getting smoked cheddar and smoked Gouda adjacent with your topping. And I think you could choose whether to make it kind of a breadcrumb topping or not. You could kind of let the toasty flavor of the beer stand in for that if you wanted to, but I think that would be just the world's easiest compliment too, to have some toasted breadcrumbs with that cheesy character on top, and then you're already playing into the toasted character of the beer, so that would be really nice. But yeah, like old school Midwestern veggie bake with a broiled cheese topping, basically, I think would be pretty nice with this.
Yeah.
And then the other one, super quickly, is I was really intrigued by like a miso glazed salmon.
Oh
Um,
my, why do I let you go first? Oh my God, why do I let you go first? Literally, I have miso glazed salmon written right here.
oh,
Oh
that's
my
amazing!
gosh.
I swear we
Oh,
did not talk about this
I,
beforehand.
I'm,
We were
and
surprising each other with pairings.
I hope people can tell by my reaction. This is,
Well, let
oh my
me,
word.
since I basically, held you back from saying it, why don't you explain your justification too? Because I'm sure that you thought it was delicious for the same reason.
Well, one of the things that really inspired me was listening to a podcast with Garrett Oliver on it. I think it was All About Beer podcast. And he was on there and he was talking about I think they asked him about weird pairings that people had suggested that that he thought maybe weren't going to be that great, but then they turned out really well. And one of them
Mm-hmm.
he said was somebody said that a traditional dish in Japan is salmon with like sour cherries on top, or like a cherry like glaze or something like that. And he said he was a little hesitant, but he's obviously extremely adventurous eater, and so he gave it a shot, and he was like, wow, like this really works. And so I wanted to play into the, like, a lot of my stuff is like a little bit like sweet and savory or sweet and sour, kind of interactions. And so that was the first thing I thought, just kind of give a nice miso glaze. And then the smoke is going to be perfect. The salmon's going to, latch onto that perfectly. That's a welcome sight in that regard. So that was where mine went. And it's also not too much, cherry that you're bringing in. So I think it's maybe going to be a little bit more of like an approachable pairing, as opposed to maybe if you told someone salmon and like creek or something like that, that might be, maybe could be a little bit of a harder sell for somebody.
Yeah, I think if you, gave this beer blind to 20 different people, there would be a very small number of people that called out cherry as a prominent character. It's just kind of suggestive, like you said, of like fairy stems and very lightly fruity, kind of playing with that caramelly, honey-like malt character too. And I had forgotten about that episode of All About Beer, and yeah, that's a you got to let some things surprise you in a good way sometimes. And I was just thinking that the miso glaze, obviously, that kind of like umami, but also sweet. You kind of like are cooking down essentially a salty and sugary glaze, and then you
Right.
glaze the salmon. Whatever cherry you're getting from the beer is going to go good with just about any glaze type character to match those. It's both sweetness and impressions of sweetness. And then I thought the really nice kind of side benefit too was, the beer does not taste like cedar, but cedar plank salmon is a very common way to make salmon,
Right.
but just a little bit of that smoke and wood character, almost like a, plank cooked salmon as well. So yeah, we've definitely we're in the similar frame of mind on that.
Yeah, some of the other ones I thought of were like sweet and sour chicken, for getting that kind of sour contrast, throwing in a little bit of that pineapple character that you can get from the sauce. What do you? Oh, I was like, what are you showing us on the cap?
I was trying to show the camera if for people watching it what the cap looked like, but
Oh, okay,
my
nice.
coordination's pretty terrible.
And then kind of in that same realm, going with something maybe like some shumai pork dumplings or something like that. Just when you're getting soy sauce, toasted sesame oil, oyster sauce, probably some black soy sauce and ginger, some ginger infusion into the dipping sauce for that. Again, the smoke's gonna be playing really well with all of the meat, and all of the umami is just going to be a great sweet and savory combo. What did you land on for dessert?
I'm really excited about the dessert idea, which is a fairly simple idea, but kolaches, Czech style
What are those?
kolaches, which are they're basically a baked pastry. You have kind of like a fluffy dough. It's almost the consistency of a donut dough, but these aren't fried, they're baked. And they come, the sweet versions, you can make savory versions as well, which would be great with this, but the sweet versions come with like a fruit jam in the middle, and sometimes with cream cheese as well. So it's like a jammy cream cheese baked pastry, with Czech, kind of like Moravian and Bohemian origins, but the Czech ones are usually sweet. And Czech immigrants brought that to lots of pockets of the Midwest and Texas in the United States. So you can find kolache stands throughout like Central Texas and lots of places in the Midwest. But I would do like apricot and cream cheese one. Get kind of like smoked fruit you're a big fan of, like grilled fruit kind of deal.
Yeah.
But also all the rage with people that have smokers at home now too is making like a smoked cream cheese that you then dip all manner of things in. And so I thought the smoke in this case, without smoking the cream cheese, would be a great contrast to the that dairy cream cheese kind of character. So yeah, it's almost like my goal would be, it's almost like smoked the cream cheese and grilled the fruit and made a little dessert pastry out of it. And they're also not like super duper sweet. There is a jam on it, but in my experience is not like preposterously sweet. And then the dough itself is really more like a lightly sweet bread dough. It's not like super sweet pastry. So, and you could get away with a little bit of sweetness, obviously, in dessert here, but we're only at 4.6% ABV, so you're missing some alcohol sweetness and body too. So we can go a little bit lighter on dessert, I think, and that'll be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking just more like I'm in like churro donut land. Really liking a touch of smoke with things like cinnamon, and even if you're able to kind of parse out some of that cherry and you're getting some of that cinnamon character, I think that's a great. But I'm really in like that realm, like cinnamon or like raspberry desserts, like either just like a simple raspberry tartlet or a raspberry crumble bar. I would really want kind of like that streusel topping on top, kind of that kind of like sugar coated butter topping. I think that would be really great. And then again, it's one of those things where I really want to see how far we could potentially push this in terms of intensity to see if it could punch above its weight, and you could maybe go into something a little bit more complicated, like a frangipane. Which is a French pastry. It's just kind of got like this like shortbread pastry shell. You can do little dollops of almond cream with some raspberries mixed into that. You could do some raspberry mousse. And obviously, one of the best ways to figure out how far we can push the intensity for a style like this is for everybody out there to just try it and then leave a comment. Let us know what kind of food you're trying with this, and also just explore more smoked beer pairings. It's one of the best. Food pairing beers. So something that everyone should just consider regardless.
Yeah, and if you're hesitant about smoked beer, generally speaking, get some like this one or a couple of different ones and experiment with it, because I think pairing it with food is going to make that interaction really positive in a way that maybe just drinking the beer by itself is not something that you're super into, but it's a really great food beer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a good place to wrap things up. I know for the next couple of videos, we're starting to see Fest beer and Märzen kind of come into the market. So Chris and I have already tried to pick up some of the at least freshest possible examples that we're getting here. So I think we're going to be doing Weinsteffen Fest beer, and then Hacker Shore Oktoberfest Märzen will be the other one. So make sure to try and grab some of those, or just any Fest beer or Märzen that you can find, even if it's a local example, and you can taste right along with us, and we'll just do the usual thing. But thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, we are at the Beer Enthusiasts. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like the video. We are at the Beer Enthusiasts on Instagram. Chris is the Fresh Beer Enthusiast. I'm the Vintage Beer Enthusiast. Another great episode, and for everybody who tuned in, cheers. We appreciate your support.
Thanks, everybody.